I could just imagine what Gable was going through. And he was thinking, okay, I lost, my team lost, but this is what I did, and this is what I got to do to my team. And he had full, everybody was in. I mean, we were in. Whatever he said, we were going to do, and we were going to like it. But maybe not like it, but we were going to do it.
You know, it's like on the ride home.
Yeah, the mythology of the ride home.
My mom asked me that the other day, because when I found out we were going to do this, and did you guys really get off that bus?
Story. People ask me about, did Gable make those guys run?
Mark Johnson and I, when this thing first came out, this idea, and I texted him and I said, "This is the dual meet with that crazy story about the rest stop, right?" He goes, "I think it was."
And we were going for our 9th straight. So rumor is I stopped the bus 9 miles out, made him run all them 9 miles. You know, I'm not going to tell you for sure if that's fact or fiction, but it did cause a rule to become in effect.
As I remember, it was snowing like crazy after that meet. And we're driving down Interstate 80, and there's a rest stop probably 12 or 15 miles just outside Iowa City. And one of the vans I was on, pulled over. We stopped at a rest stop.
You know, there's been a lot of talk about that van ride and where we stopped and where the guys got off. And we kind of keep that in-house because that's something that's I remember well. And I remember a lot of people talking about it. We just all kind of, you know, some people winked, some people said it was true, some people didn't. And we'll kind of leave it there.
Well, I doubt it if that happened because it was so cold out. I mean, there's no way a human being would do that to another human being. Well, Gable might, but, you know.
Of course, the rumor was the next day that Gable was so mad at us, especially that group of guys, that he made us get out, put our sweats on, put our running shoes on, and made us run home from that rest stop in the middle of this driving snowstorm because we lost the dual meet.
Once they heard about that, they said, well, you can't work your kids out after matches anymore that same day. And I could have come up and said, I don't know if that really happened, but I'm not going to tell the truth one way or the other right now. But then I know for sure that, and I can tell you a fact, though, that when we got back, we had a wrestling practice. So it was 9 miles and then a wrestling practice. Whether those 9 miles are fact or fiction, I'm not going to say. But we did have a wrestling practice that night.
I remember he worked us out when we got back, and it wasn't a cavalier workout either. It was stairs and running shoes, and anytime he says get the running shoes on, you know you got stairs, sprint laps, and ropes.
Nowadays, if something like that happened, that would be a major fiasco. And so, you know, whether it did, whether it didn't, whatever the facts of the stories are, I just know if it was 9 miles, my dad would have said, why didn't you stop 10 miles out?
I think it was a great lesson, and the rebound effect that it had on our team was profound.
This influence of just reading our minds and reading what we wanted and knowing what he could tell, like when we warm up, he could tell what kind of practices I have to do, even though he didn't even know what kind of practices he was going to have that day. You know, he didn't have a pen and paper. Never had a pen and paper. It's like, okay, we're doing this for 15 minutes. We're doing this for 25 minutes. Never. And that's just kind of the way he flew.
Well, obviously, he hasn't been around losing very much in his life, and that's what the attraction is to be around him as an athlete, even as a coach. Just that we just didn't do the right things it took to win. And, you know, this season is remembered at the end of the year, which most of our years are. It's just that's the nature of our sport. And we did have time to get back and, you know, accomplish our goals.
I got hit hard here, but it wasn't like you couldn't turn it around because I just had a lot of good wrestlers.
I just looked at him and said, this is BS. I didn't say BS, I said the other word. And I just started arguing with it. I did this. You know, I cut 8.5 pounds. I did this. Then you made me, you know, excuse my French, effing run up these stairs, and I was embarrassed. You embarrassed me. You know, and I'm saying all this, and when I got done talking, he looked at me and said, this whole time I was deciding what I was going to do. And, you know, I was debating what I was going to do at that weight class, and what we're going to do now is we're going to have a wrestle-off. He already made that plan up in his head a long time ago. But it was like an excuse to have a wrestle-off. And you get wrestle off Monday with Glenn. Understand, Glenn is ranked third in the nation. This isn't the normal guy you got to wrestle off.
And that was exactly probably why I had to try out, because Penrith probably was doing a little better at the end there.
I'm from New York, and Paul's from Bettendorf, Iowa. You know, and so they got this mat out there, and there is thousands of people, and the whole town of Bettendorf is sitting in the front row, yelling and screaming for Glenn, and I end up winning. And you know what? Not taking anything from Paul, and I dominated that match, but I'm going to be honest with you. Paul thought it was over. So his weight was really high. It wasn't like today, you text someone real fast, hey, by the way, you know, you got to get a hold of him on the phone, you got to make sure he's home. So what happened is Paul finds out, probably Monday morning, by the way, we're having a wrestle-off this afternoon. You have to make scratch, and Paul is 12, 15 pounds over, and he had to cut all that weight, and it was a benefit to me, but, I mean, still, I had to go on and perform, and I ended up winning, and it was a possible 2 out of 3, or if you dominate the first one, it's 1. And it was the smartest thing that Gable ever did to me, because it boosted my confidence level, and you gotta be honest with you, I was pissed off that I had to do it, but after I did it, my confidence level skyrocketed. I just dominated the third-ranked guy in the country, and I think that propelled me into the Big Tens that year and on into winning the national title that year.
There's that team aspect, but there's the individual aspect of it. And the individual aspect, I think that's where Coach Gable, to me, was so good, is it was never just, this is the team. You know, it's not so much this is what the team's doing, so we're just doing it as a team. There was the team part, and then there's the individual part, and he really made sure that you needed to do what you needed to do for that. Like if the whole team was running, but one guy needed to get in an extra lift, that guy would go lift, or vice versa. You know, if the guy needed to do an extra run or needed to run instead of this when the team is doing something else, and nobody questioned it. Nobody was worried about, well, he gets to do this, or, you know, there were no questions. Everybody knew that what was happening was for the best for each individual, and consequently the best for the team.
Dad, you always want to question things we did in practice, but it was Gable that was putting you through it. And if he said to do it, you did it, because you knew it was the best thing for you. But Tuesday, you know, started Hell Week. I want to say it like that because it was pure torture. And we're getting ready for the Big Tens. And it wasn't like the whole week, but it was a couple of days of, you know, morning and afternoon with enough time to rest in between. But, you know, it consists of morning runs, quarter-mile sprints, buddy carries.
I remember being on my back, yeah. And the thing is, you know, it wasn't only Royce. And the one thing when he was, you know, maybe doing a little extra busting chops, he would be on your back and he'd start, you know, you're bent over and you're carrying him. He'd start standing you up, right? He would start standing you up and maybe dragging his feet or putting his feet, you know, behind your hamstrings, maybe to make it a little bit harder, just to make sure you knew that he's going to get a little more out of you.
I remember us working out, and Gable was pissed.
We did sprints around the whole arena.
Well, real tough. I mean, I never had a really easy peasy day, ever.
You know, they probably weren't fun. They were probably what we call 3-a-days.
He had a plan. He was going to stick to the plan, and we were going to train hard. But we did make adjustments. Everything got more condensed, shorter, more intense, and practices weren't very long. And I think all of us felt like we were recovering pretty well physically. And I think, when those things happen, you start getting more fresh mentally.
That's a short turnaround mentally, not physically, but mentally from a bunch of guys not performing well.
Yeah, I've been there. Absolutely.
And I don't know if Matt Eglin told you the story about him leaving the team. So, as I remember, we were going to Minneapolis, and we were leaving Friday morning. So a bunch of us got together. In fact, I think the whole team actually got together that night to cut weight, start getting your weight down. But we did it as a group. So we're all in Carver in the wrestling room, and get our sweats on. Everybody got a pretty good sweat. Everybody's kind of in a great mood, feeling good about themselves. And all of a sudden, somebody's like, "Hey, where did Matt go?" And just kind of everybody started walking around, wondering what was going on, where he went, and he disappeared. So, long story with how that whole thing transpired, but the long and short of it was we went in without a 118-pounder to the Big Ten tournament.
How are we going to handle this? And I thought we'd handle it well, but, we handled it very, very well.
University of Iowa, it was a tremendous day. They wrapped up the team title, the NCAA Wrestling Championships, before the finals began. And then in the finals, they really came through at 126 pounds. Brad Penrith, Kevin Dressler won at 142, Heffernan at 150, Marty Kessler 167, and Dwayne Goldman at 190 pounds. Dwayne Goldman had tried 3 times before. He captured it today.